Starting things out, a member of Campaign for Liberty. He's going to share with us the Declaration of Independence, Scott DeLong.
Thanks, Chris.
How about the national anthem?
It's coming. It's coming. I'm going to put this in here. So put this up a little bit. Can you all hear me okay? Yeah. All right. Welcome, everybody. We stand here today on the eve of the anniversary of the most powerful moment in the history of mankind. 234 years ago, the independence of America from the British Crown was proclaimed to the world. This declaration was the work of a 34-year-old gentleman by the name of Thomas Jefferson. The Declaration of Independence, while old, is more than just a piece of history. Its principles are timeless. We often take the Declaration of Independence because we have lived in a state of relative liberty. However, we're like fish that is in water. We don't understand that we have this freedom. However, at the time that it was written, these ideas were truly revolutionary. The ideas of freedom, of government, by the consent of the governed, and the natural rights of man were freakish and absurd. They stood as polar opposites to the divine right of kings. There was no place in the world that was free. Everywhere in the world was ruled by a king, a pasha, a khan, or a dictator. These ideas were threatening to these monarchs and the continued rule of their empires. We as Americans are different by our nature. We wanted something different than the stifled life of Europe. So my purpose here today is to attempt to bring the Declaration of Independence to life. Why do we have it? What does it mean? Is it still relevant? You are familiar with these words, I'm sure. When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes that impel them to their separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, and that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, and whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to institute new government, laying on its foundation such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. The second sentence of this preamble has been called one of the most well-known sentences in the English language. It remains to this day the most profound, and to sovereigns everywhere the most gut-wrenching sentence ever penned by the citizenry of any nation. So what do life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness mean? Life. This means that God has given us the right to live. No king or sovereign can deprive us of this right. It doesn't come from the courts, a federal agency, or local tribunal. Why did our founding fathers assign this right to God? Because they knew if it was a man-given right that it could be taken away by the stroke of a pen. It is a right that you are created with, and as such, it can never be taken away from you. Liberty. Did liberty mean the same thing as when we speak the words today? The founders spoke of liberty and freedom as two separate but connected ideas. Both words contain the idea of the ability to exercise one's will and the power to choose. However, the words differ. Liberty comes from the Latin libertas, meaning unbounded or unrestricted or released from constraint. It also contains the idea of being separate and independent. Today, our concept of liberty is thin and pale compared to that of our founders. We want to believe in liberty with a small L, but not so much that we could get hurt. Our liberty has been washed away slowly for so long that we consider ourselves free, though the government is involved in every aspect of our lives. Many expect that the government will prevent us from making mistakes, rescue us if we do make them, and provide for us if we fail. Our founding generation wanted no such constraints. They accepted that they would have no safety net if they failed. This concept is alien to both political parties today, and to many Americans in general, unfortunately. Benjamin Franklin said, "Those that are willing to trade liberty for a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety." Liberty is freedom from absolute and arbitrary power, otherwise known as tyranny. Life without liberty is tyranny. Life without liberty is not worth living because it is the umbrella under which life and the pursuit of happiness are possible. For our founders, liberty was not new, but like the Liberty Tree, which was a symbol of the time, it was deeply rooted and established among them. By 1776, some families had lived in America for 170 years. Liberty was something that they had always possessed. That is why Jefferson wrote, "We hold these truths to be self-evident." Independence was not a quest for something new, but a revolt against government arbitrarily taking away their liberties. So now we have the pursuit of happiness. What does this mean? Well, it has nothing to do with a person's emotional state. It doesn't mean that the government was instituted to provide for the wants and needs of the people, which leads invariably to indolence and hedonism. The pursuit of happiness was understood as the right to property. This didn't mean just material items that you collect in life, like your home, your car, land, etc. It means the ownership of oneself. It includes the right to personal well-being. It means that you have the freedom to use your time, talent, and resources to live a life that gives you the most satisfaction, and that would benefit your friends, fellow man, and future generations the most. In other words, we have the right to the fruit of our labor without interference from government.
Yes.
The government has no right to confiscate your property or any portion of it without your consent. But Mr. Jefferson tells us also that these rights are inalienable rights and that governments are instituted among men to secure these rights. What does this mean? Inalienable means that these rights are given to us by God and not government. Therefore, as a gift from God, they can be never taken away from them. We possess them, not government. To secure. Governments are instituted to secure these rights. In other words, government exists to support the rights of the people. The people do not exist to support the government. Now here's something you might find amazing. The Declaration of Independence lists 27 abuses of the king, and each abuse was for the purpose of establishing tyrannical government in America. 14 of these are still being practiced by our government today. I'll name a few of them to you. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people. Look at the unprecedented growth of government in the last 10 years. Unaccountable federal agencies ruin or close businesses with excessive regulations not passed by the legislature. Transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses. The Patriot Act allows citizens to be taken to foreign prisons and interrogated without charge. He has abdicated his government here by declaring us out of his protection. The Department of Homeland Security has ceded the Oregon Pipe Cactus National Park to Mexico, but it is off limits to U.S. citizens. This area is 80 miles inside the United States of America and is 30 miles from the Arizona capital. In short, my friends, our ancestors fought a war for less than what the government is doing to us now. But you ask, what can we do? Well,
What are we going to do about it? Yes.
I'll tell you what we're going to do about it. Each one of us must proclaim these self-evident truths. If we don't, my friends, the final terminus of this grasping at unlimited power and control is tyranny. At present, our rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are under widespread and unrelenting attack. The way back to this restoration is going to be painful and difficult, and it will be much more complicated than that faced by our founders. Why, you might ask? Because hostilities are already underway. There are powerful groups in our nation that have had their hearts and minds turned against our view. Our struggle is for the hearts and minds of people who make America itself and not a foreign power. But the good news is that we are awake and the struggle has commenced. Ronald Reagan said, "We are at a time of choosing." He said, "You and I are told that we must choose between left and right. But I suggest that there is no such thing as a left or right. There is only up or down. Up to man's age-old dream, the maximum of individual freedom consistent with order, or down to the ant heap of totalitarianism. We can find other parallels in history. The decadence that was Rome is being replayed before our eyes. Rome began its life as a republic, and it ended in a dictatorship. Obama and our Congress are pursuing the same course. This is obvious for anybody willing to look the hard truth in the face. But the harder truth, my friends, is that Obama is just a symptom and not the problem. The true problem lies with the American people. We have allowed this to happen. We don't really teach natural rights of mankind, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights in our schools anymore. However, to place this blame on the schools is also not to face the hard truth. We as individuals have failed to read and understand our founding documents. We have not understood the writings of our founders and the times in which they lived. More importantly, we have not passed these truths on to our children. We have not inculcated into them what it really means to be an American. As Americans, we are not members of a particular ethnic group like other nations. To be truly American is to hold a set of beliefs. It is to believe in individual liberty, the God-given natural rights of mankind, limited government, and self-determination. Until we raise our children to understand these truths, we can only expect more of the same regardless of what party is in power or who the president is. I'm sorry I'm running a little long, but I feel this. But my friends, liberty once lost is seldom regained. I call on each one of you to advance these principles to everyone, but especially to our young people and our children. If we can halt this statist advance towards dictatorship and elect liberty-minded people, we can hopefully buy enough time to raise a new generation that have liberty as the foundation of our society. In short, we can have a restoration of our nation, and we can live by the rule of law and not the rule of men. One thing that is really touching to me is that on the eve of the Battle of Bunker Hill, the most powerful army of the largest empire ever known was arrayed before Joseph Warren, a physician and patriot in Boston. He uttered these prophetic words to his men, and they ring true to this day. Here's what he said: this cannot intimidate us. Our liberty must be preserved, for it is dearer than life. We can no longer reflect with generous pride on the heroic actions of our American forefathers if we but for a moment entertain the thought of giving up our liberty. Our country is in danger, but not to be despaired of. Our enemies are numerous and powerful, but we have many friends, determining to be free. And heaven and earth will aid in this resolution. On you depend the fortunes of America. You are to decide the important question on which rests the happiness and liberty of millions yet unborn. Act worthy of yourselves. My friends, we are the stewards of an awesome inheritance. As our founders proclaimed our independence, they had everything to lose, yet they mutually pledged to each other their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. The question that we must all ask ourselves is, are we willing to do the same? God bless you, and God bless America. I'm Spartacus!